welcome to the Farming on Purpose podcast. Today's challenges in agriculture are new, but the grit and determination required to be successful have been handed down for generations. On the Farming on Purpose podcast, we preserve the ag heritage and traditions we built our identity on, while pursuing the American dream of multi-generation farms that innovate for the future. Listen along as we share stories of how farmers and ranchers are building legacies, both in their business and their character, for the sake of those they'll pass the reins to. I'm your host, Lexi Wright, and I'm excited to talk with you about the financial, generational, and production challenges facing producers in the ag industry today. This podcast is brought to you by Back Pocket Social Marketing. And yes, this is Lexi here. This podcast has been a real passion project for me. All the time that goes into interviewing guests, editing, and producing the show is sponsored by my freelance marketing agency. We specialize in website design, social media advertising, content creation and management, and email marketing. If you like to take a foundational approach to your marketing and figure out exactly what's working for you and what's not, and really focus on efficiency, then you would be a great candidate to work with us. You can reach out and talk with us more at lexi@backpocketsocial.com. We would love to help you solve your marketing challenges. All right. Well, welcome back to Farming on Purpose. I am really excited to have Laurie Bruce from Bruce's Bullseye Farms here today. I've met Laurie a couple times, but we were at a conference together this spring, and I heard you talking about food access in a way that I thought was very unique, in a way that doesn't get talked about enough. So I'm really excited just to hear more about your story today and talk more about that with you. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. Yes, I'm Laurie Bruce, Bruce's Bullseye Farms. We are a first generation farm, and I just kind of learn as I go, I feel like sometimes. But so my husband and I have been married 30 years. We have 3 kids. They're all grown. So really, it's just me and him on the farm. We also run a commercial kitchen. And that's about it.
Awesome. Well, I know you guys have had crazy growth over the last few years in everything that you're doing and taking on there. Tell me a little bit about what your life was like before becoming a first generation farmer and what drew you to decide to go down this path.
Well, before I was a stay-at-home mom with my kids, and I just I really, that was my, I guess, job. I know that's not a good way to put it, but that was my job. I just loved being with my kids. But there was always this underlying dream that my husband and we wanted to have land. Now, what we want to do with that land, we didn't really want it. We didn't know. We knew we wanted to, have our own food. And then, if we had a little bit left over, for a neighbor or whatever. So we started with some backyard gardens. We had the kids at home, and we just kept looking for that piece of property we could call our own. We were on 1.5 acres. And then we found the farm, and we decided to jump in both feet, just, not a toe in the water type of move. We just jumped in. And so we started with just chickens, and then it just kind of grew from there. I mean, I don't feel like we have a lot. I mean, especially, but it's hard to, I guess, back, because we want to, you always want to compare to like the person next to you, but it's like, okay, this is our farm. We are truly first generation. We're doing what we can with what we have. And our goal is to be fully self-sustainable and have a little bit of extra.
That's awesome. So what was it that made you guys seek that out? You said you wanted to be able to grow your own food. What is it that makes you passionate about that?
It just tastes better. And I like to know, I don't know. I want to know where my food comes from. And I just, it's, fresh, it's healthy. It's, you just have that sense of satisfaction if you do it yourself also. And it just, it's just an amazing, I don't know, just to look at, like we have just a few Black Angus cows, and just to see the baby born on the farm, and it just, it becomes part of the family, and we take care of it now and we help sustain it because we know later it's going to help sustain us. So it's just this cycle of life and watching and viewing, and just this, it's just satisfying.
Yeah, for sure. What's the learning curve been like there as a first generation farmer? Did you or your husband have any experience doing farming prior to that?
A lot of it was just, I grew up in a rural community, so observation, it was just, seeing what other people are doing and then asking the right questions, and then just a desire to learn. Never stop learning. I don't care how old you are, never stop learning. And also just, I have a fascination with food. I love food. So, then my husband, he grew up in Southern Arkansas. They had some acreage, like his mom grew a big garden. They had maybe a couple of cows, so they would have maybe would be considered a mini farm. And then myself, I just lived in a rural town and was around around the farming community. It was so satisfying.
Yeah. I grew up on what I would call a hobby farm or a mini farm. Either way, I love the kind of transition in terms to mini farm versus hobby farm. I think that's very empowering to folks who choose that, but it's more than a hobby. It's not just a hobby. So I like that term. But I grew up there, and my husband is a 6th generation on his family's farm that we're actually going back to this year. And I completely agree. It's just so cool to be part of your community in that way and to learn continuously, because there's never an end to the stuff that you can learn when you're producing your own food. It's just not unending. So you are also a instructor at a local community college. Tell me a little bit about what you teach and what you talk about there.
Sure. So I mentioned earlier I'd stayed at home with my children. They entered school. It really wasn't, I guess, feasible, or I would get bored just being at home by myself without children. So I went back to school and I got my math teaching degree. And so I've always had this fascination and love of just numbers. And then I've always had this other, I would consider it a hobby, but finally career in food, because I just love to eat and create good food. But anyhow, so I never thought in a million years there'd be a way that I can combine those two passions. And I got the opportunity a couple of years ago. Butler they have a new Culinary Arts Institute, got a new head of the program, Chef Luis Pina. And I met him and told him my math background. He knew I was, had my own business and I was getting my own commercial kitchen. And he offered me a job to teach their culinary math. And so to most people, culinary math was very boring because they think, what do you do with culinary math? Well, I get to take the math skills and I get to create my own labs and get to teach a few recipes using the math so that the students are out of the classroom. And I combine math and I combine culinary, and I have one class that I teach. And then I myself had the opportunity to go through most of the culinary arts program myself because I assisted with a visually impaired student. And so I got to take a lot of the classes. So now mine's even, focused more culinary and more math. And, even the way that I do stuff personally with my own business, everything's math. I weigh everything's percentages, cost cards, just everything. So it's evolving. So you're kind of at the beginning of this, I guess, evolution in my mind of combining math and culinary and learning more and doing more with math and my business. And so it's kind of a whirlwind some days.
Yeah, I bet. Well, it sounds like a really cool opportunity to get to teach math in that way. Culinary math is not a term that I've heard before. I heard you talk about it. So tell us something that you wish more people knew about culinary math.
So with culinary math, for instance, if you think of people who bake bread, you're just baking it a little bit in your home, you're following a recipe, but you could give 5 people that same recipe and I guarantee it would come out a little bit different each time. And the main reason is we all measure differently with measuring cups. But if you standardize that recipe where it's by weight, and then you go on to what's called baker's percentages, you can scale the recipe up, down, and it should taste the same every time because everybody is putting the exact same weight of ingredients. So that's one way I do it. I also do shows like we do vinairettes and, different, and then even just how do you run a food business without knowing how to do cost cards? And I did that prior, and I could tell you I had a food trailer. I still have a food trailer, but more figured out, but now I need time to do it. Okay.
It's so interesting because I have not been baking for very long, and I have had terrible luck getting bread recipes to work out. I think for one, I tried a lot of them during the winter and it's so cold in our house that I could not for the life of me get them to rise. But I've been thinking that I need to try to do things by weight instead and see if I have better luck that way.
Yeah, yeah. And, a lot of it's your temperature too, and what kind of yeast you use as well. And so there's a few different factors involved as well.
Yeah. I have picky eaters in my home too, so that also factors in. It's like it has to be just right or nobody's going to eat it except me.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so you said when you guys purchased your farm, you got started with chickens. Tell us more about what all you have now and kind of what that growth looked like.
Okay, yeah. So we did just chickens, and I sold a few dozen eggs, and it was kind of nice. It's like we got this little tiny bit of income off the farm, and basically it didn't cover anything but the feed cost. So it's kind of like we got to eat our chicken eggs for free because we sold enough eggs to cover the feed cost. So that was kind of really our goal, is that we could, I don't know, in a way, just eat for free. We've not really been looking at that time to turn a profit, but we needed to turn a profit in order to continue growing the farm. We realized that as we went forward, it's like, okay, how are we going to grow unless we do turn a profit? And initially I thought, gosh, profit seems so selfish, or it was hard to admit that you're in business because you do want a profit. So I went over that hurdle in my mind because it just seemed like it was greed to me and things like that. And so we started with the chicken eggs, and we there was every once in a while, if we had a chicken that seemed like it wasn't producing, we had fried chicken. So we used the whole animal, and then we have some, I don't know, sand plums on our property, and I like to make sand plum jelly, and I would initially just give it away because I just thought, it's just too good not to share. And so I had a friend that owns the pumpkin patch outside of Augusta, and she said, do you really need to be selling your stuff? And I have an outdoor market. Please come and sell. And I was like, I have a hard time doing that. She goes, I will give you a booth space. So she gave me the booth space, and, even a week or two before, I thought, I just can't do it. I mean, I was really doubting myself because to me, it seems selfish to want to go out there and make money when I'd already been giving my stuff away. But on the other hand, is like, yeah, there's things we want to do on the farm, and how are we going to cover that extra income? Do I really want to go work extra hours, or do I want, I'm still working, but it's just for myself instead. So I thought, okay, I'll take it out there. So I took some jars of sand plum jelly, a couple dozen loaves of pumpkin bread, 2 items of mine, and I sold out. And I was like, oh, wow, people really might buy this sort of stuff. And so we still had this goal of this self-sustainability, and we had the garden, and, we were just doing a few small animal type things, and the value added stuff just took over. So we're not really where we are, or we're not where we want to be with our farm right now, because my husband, he didn't quit working on the farm. I mean, he works full time, but he had to pause a lot of his farm projects to come and help me, because things just took over the past, exploded to the point we bought a commercial kitchen, and it just went crazy. I quit a full-time job, except for I do, kept the adjunct part at Butler. And so now, just this year, we're kind of turning it back to the farm, where I have an employee now, he's at home more. And so we're trying to figure out those things that we can grow or raise that can be cycled through the commercial kitchen. So one instance is we have a very small herd of Black Angus cattle. We maybe butcher 2 a year, maybe 3 at the most. And we just don't have very many. And it's a new herd as well. And so what we do is we do the USDA processing, and we get a lot of it processed into ground beef, and I use those for beer rocks. So that's one item that we're raising on our farm, and then I'm taking it to the commercial kitchen and turning it into a product. So we want to find more and more of those products that we can actually have on the farm, or partner with other individuals that, because I feel like life's a journey, not a competition. So what are other people raising or growing that maybe I can cycle through my kitchen, and where they get credit for that? And it's not just about me, but it's like, okay, such and such grew this, and we created this product, and this is like a joint venture between these 2 individuals.
I think that's really the only way to grow and be able to do all the things you want to do without completely ruining your life by having absolutely no time or money to do anything at all. Is to do that community approach. That's really cool. When you guys first started, did you ever dream that you would have a commercial kitchen and be doing all of this like value added processed or value added foods?
I'm sorry, it's cutting out on me again.
Oh, no worries. I was just saying, when you guys got started, did you ever dream you'd have a commercial kitchen and be doing all of these value added foods that you're selling to your community?
No, not at all. I mean, it was just one of those. It was a hobby, and I knew there was cottage kitchen law, so I stuck with the jellies because that's what I could do out of my house. But then it just started growing and evolving, and there were so many other foods I like to make, and I'm like, well, after the jellies kind of is like, well, if I had a commercial kitchen or maybe I could rent one, then maybe I could add this product or this product. Well, then it just kept growing so much. It's like we just started looking for a building. We considered building here farm, but we didn't want that, taxes are the big thing. I did not want to have part of my farm be taxed at the commercial rate. So we found an already existing commercial building, gutted it, and turned it into our commercial kitchen. So it's good and it's bad. I mean, there's days I would just like to just be on the farm all day, even if it was in a building, so I could just look outside. But on the other hand, it's like, well, I get a break. I don't have to. I'm at least getting away from, I guess, now work. But I don't know. So it's a blessing and a curse in a way. It's nice to get away a little bit, but there's other days I kind of wish my kitchen was on the farm now because then I could just be here.
Yeah. I feel like it's so hard to manage that balance as you grow and things change in your business, to still be what makes you happy and balance that with all of the other legal hoops you have to jump through as far as regulations and taxes and making sure you are making a profit. It's so hard if you grow fast to balance all of that.
Yes.
What does that look like for you guys?
A lot of long nights, that's for sure. So I finally have an employee in my kitchen, which is very nice. Like she's working over at the kitchen right now while I'm visiting with you. And so it's good that I can just kind of get that away time. But I will be going out with her tonight, and I may be there till 10 or 11, 12 at night. So right now we're managing fine, but it's still a lot of hours, but it's fine because we do have these goals, things we want to accomplish. And I'd rather work 80 hours for myself than 40 hours for somebody else. So it's just, I know that what I'm producing, I'm going to get a break from a little bit when I, go to farmers market, I talk to people, I enjoy it, and I go out. But there's also the flexibility. If I was working another job for somebody else, I wouldn't have been able to stop in the middle of the day and say, hey, I got to, interview with Lexi Wright for the podcast. But since I work for myself, I can just tell my employee, hey, you can finish this. So I'm going to run home and, take care of things. And so, I think that's a good balance because I do have that flexibility and I can manage my own time.
Yeah, that makes it a little bit easier to at least know that even if you're working more hours than you would maybe want to, you're doing it for to forward your own goals, make your own choices.
Right. And another thing, we'd like to involve our kids more. They're all adults. So they were teenagers when we bought the farm. So they didn't really get to grow up on the farm, so I feel like they didn't get that taste real well of what farm life should be like. Because when we first got the farm, it was so overgrown. We were putting in a lot of work. We didn't have a lot of the animals. We didn't have a lot of the structure. And we're still trying to get there. I mean, there's still a lot of cleanup, a lot that we need to do because we've only been out here since 2016. And like I said, for a couple of years in a row, my husband wasn't doing his projects that he wanted to do. But I think it took us 3 years to finish our outdoor chicken pen. It just got done because he had time, to finish that. And none of our kids live at home, but they're actually starting to help out a little bit more. They're kind of taking notice. They're starting to pay attention, and they're not. It's kind of like, chickens coming home to roost. It's exciting that the kids are starting to gain some interest in what we're doing here.
That is cool. What are they most excited about, or what are they most interested in that you guys have done?
Well, for one thing that we don't have them yet. We'd like to get some meat chickens. We've always done the layers, and like I said, we've eaten them, a couple of them, but we want the specific meat layers. Well, our son, middle son, he was a butcher for 4 years, and so he would maybe like to do some meat chickens. So there's a few things that he's kind of looking at. Talked to somebody about some sheep the other day, so he's kind of interested a little bit in the animals. And then my daughter, on the other hand, she did go through the culinary arts program herself. Well, she was in high school and graduated with her culinary arts degree. And so now she's kind of coming around where she's noticing the foods that were being produced and, taking to the markets and the different things we're doing. And so she's kind of maybe interested in that aspect. So it's kind of nice. And then we've got a third son that he's kind of interested in whatever we throw him into. So he's a police officer, so he works really, really weird hours. So it's harder for him to, maintain a schedule, but it's kind of nice. We've got one that's really interested in farm work, help, more of a help to my husband. And then the other that's interested in the food, which would be more of a help to me. So
that's awesome. It's so much fun when you can work with family that way.
Yes, that's for sure.
I heard you say that you guys wanted to be more self-sustainable. And I think that means a lot of different things to people depending on their experience with kind of like, say, self-sustainable projects. What does that mean to you guys?
Well, for instance, with they talk about inflation and the economy, and yes, our feed costs have gone up, but I feel like in a way, if you are sustaining your own products, you're growing your own gardens, you're raising your own beef, you will have some added costs. But inflation, I don't feel like hits our pocketbooks as much because I don't have to go pay $5 a dozen for eggs. I go out to my chicken coop and I get my own eggs. We have a few dairy cows. We milk 2 of them. If the shelves are empty, I don't have to worry about not having milk to drink. I don't have to worry about not having eggs. I don't have to worry about not having beef in my freezer. So we're sustainable in that we don't have to depend on the supply chain to provide for our own food.
Yeah. What are some of the things that have made the biggest difference for you guys in your kind of journey to be more and more self-sustainable?
Well, I mean, especially with COVID, you just go to the grocery store and the shelves are empty, and people are panicking. And, it's just like, I don't want to live in my life in fear. So I need to take control of my own life and not depend on the big corporations to feed me myself. It used to be that we used to have local food hubs and everybody got their food locally. And, where did that break down? How can we connect with others? Because there's a lot of people growing food. There's a lot of people growing beef. There's a lot of people doing this stuff. If we would come together, our community is not going to have to worry about what happens in, the coast to not get us the food that we need to sustain ourselves. So, why do we have to look so far away for food when it's right here in our backyard?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Lexi here, and I'm interrupting the show to tell you about a new option we have for marketing support for you. I've met so many people the past 6 months who are looking for DIY marketing support, and while I primarily offer marketing packages and website design in my marketing business, I'm excited to have something just for you DIYers too. So I know you need answers quickly to help you overcome tech challenges and get feedback on your marketing content when you have a spare minute to work on it. And you want to keep growing and learning how to make your marketing work in a way that makes sense for you. Here's what I've got for you. First, you can sign up for a free marketing toolkit, which includes social media post templates, email marketing outlines, video ideas, and a content planner and tracker. And to get tutorials and answers to those pressing questions, sign up for our weekly marketing tutorials for just $10 a month, where we tackle your most frustrating challenges together. Or sign up for the marketing support line, where you get direct access via text message to ask all of your tech support and marketing advice questions. It's like having a marketing and tech support person in your back pocket. We solve website issues, social media challenges, and just give feedback on the content you're creating. You can find those options at lexywrightconsulting.com/social under marketing support.
You mentioned that you guys have started with 2 milk cows. When did you get those?
April 1st. So we haven't had them very long. So
exciting.
Yeah. So I've just had them a couple of months. Yeah.
Well, it's
stressful a little bit too.
Yeah. We're looking at getting one ourselves. I've been waiting and waiting. I've been wanting to get one for over a year now, but it hasn't been the right time. So you have to tell me what your experience has been like so far and what kind of cows you have and all the details.
Okay. Yeah. So we do have a couple of Jersey cows and then a baby Jersey. And so we milk 2 of them. The experience is that it tastes wonderful. We leave the cream on it. We can do some on-farm milk sales. So we've met a lot of nice people that have come out for milk. And so that's been great. But on the other hand, I've had less time at the kitchen, which this time of the year is not good. And so the time involved, we kind of did a fill out for a farmhand. It's hard to find help. And so we do milk twice a day, and it's like, okay, you have to do that or they're going to dry up. And I mean, we realized all that going in, but we really thought we'd be able to find a farmhand, and it just has not panned out. The worst part is just making sure everything's clean. I mean, of course you want to make it clean. It takes longer to actually do the cleanup of the equipment than it does to actually milk the cows themselves. So the time involved, the time commitment, that's the downfall. The rest of it's just great. So I'm just kicking around a few ideas, of like, okay, how can we keep the cows and, I don't know, still have a little bit more time. So I don't know. I've got today on Facebook, I put an ad. What about a cow share program where somebody pays like $50 a month? They bring their own portable milking equipment, and that's their time. They can come every Saturday, milk the cow, and that's their milk. So it's kind of like they work for their own milk. And so I've actually got one message already of somebody interested. So I thought, if I could get a few slots filled that way where somebody that maybe like you, if you live close to me, you're like, man, I'd really like to have my own cow, but I'd like that experience for a month or two. Then you could come out every Saturday evening, bring your milking equipment, because it's not very much on Amazon, and milk the cow for a couple months and keep all the milk that you're getting just to see, yeah, I'd really like to have my own cow. Now I'm going to go and do this. Or no, I think just doing this one day a week is plenty, and that gives us plenty of milk for the week. So it's kind of a way to give somebody an opportunity to see if they want to have their own cow, and it helps us because it would relieve us of our time because, the cow share person, they don't have to buy the feed. They don't have to do anything. I mean, we have the feed rations already ready. They just come and they, we teach them how to milk the cow, and then they would come at their designated time once a week.
That's a brilliant idea. If we lived closer, I would 100% do that. I would take you up on
that. So yeah, because I don't want to get rid of the cows. Part of it really hit me yesterday. I have a 1-year-old granddaughter, and so she's walking now. And I was my son came and brought her by the kitchen, and I said, "Oh, have you guys been to the park here in Leon?" And they're like, "No." And he goes, "Where is it?" And I said, "Oh, it's up this way and this way." I said, "You should stop when you're leaving town." I stopped in my tracks. I said, "You know what? I'm going to go with you guys." So I just stopped what I did, and I went for the hour. And I thought, I have got to quit being so busy because my family's come, I've got a granddaughter that's 1 now, and she's walking. And so we were walking across the park, and she was holding her dad's hand, and she looked at me, kind of grinned, and grabbed my hand too for just a second. I'm like, I would have missed this if I would have stayed in my kitchen. And I know being tied to the cows, I'm missing some stuff because they want to go to Silver Dollar City. How can I go to Silver Dollar City? I got to milk twice a day. So that's the downfall I'm kind of struggling with right now, but I don't want to get rid of the cows. So I got to find a good balance.
That balance is hard to find. I have 4 kids that are under 6 years old, and I feel like I am someone who needs to work. I need to. And I struggle constantly with that feeling that I'm missing things. But at the same time, I'm like, I would not be as good of a mom if I wasn't doing what I'm passionate about. So it's like, a constant war of what's more important at the moment.
Yes.
Well, let's talk some more about food accessibility, food education, feeding your local community. We touched on it just a little bit when you talked about how, being more self-sustainable and having those food resources in your community, not having to look elsewhere, makes us more food secure in our local communities. How did you come to start thinking about all of this? You talked about COVID a little bit, and what are you doing to try to benefit your community in that way?
So, I mean, I don't know if I've just always felt this way, or I think the older you get, I don't know, maybe it's the grumpier I get. I don't know what it is, but you just kind of get in tune with what's going on in your surroundings. Sometimes you just go through life and it's like, you go to the store, you buy this, you get what you need, and you just keep going, and I've been there too. I've been caught up in that. But lately I've just been more, I guess, obsessed with a little bit of food packaging as well at the store. I mean, you go in and you just, I don't know, look at the shelves. Is that really food? Is all the processed food really food? If you cannot pronounce, I don't know. I feel like if you can't pronounce the ingredients and it's got 20 ingredients just for, say, like Cheez-Its, it's probably not really food. It's not healthy. So I've just been I don't know, maybe it's just me. I've just been on this kick a little bit more about like wanting to know where my food comes from. I mean, I know where my food comes from now, but I'm like, do other people think this way? Am I just, am I insane? But like, I literally went to Dillon's the other day and I was hungry. They say never to shop hungry. But I walked through the store and I'm like, there's nothing that's really saying I need to grab it and eat, because I just felt like it was almost, I don't know, some sort of poison or something. I don't know. It was just a moment that I had. And so I ended up grabbing a bag of carrots. It filled me up, but I had enough carrots that it was fine by the time I got home. But it was like, I don't want a candy bar. I don't want chips. I don't want, I don't know what to put in deli meat, and it just, there's just so many things that have been going on around in my mind about some of the things that we put in our bodies, and we call it food, but it's not really food, I don't think. So anyhow, I've just, like I said, this is just the beginning that I've met you, and I'm starting to think about these things and trying to do more of these things. And, I don't know. I convey that to the community that some of the foods is not really truly food. I mean, we're just kind of, whatever Walmart and Dillard's gives us, that's what we've got. But there's more to it than that, really.
It really is. And it's such a hard conversation to navigate, I feel like, because there are so many things that our food influences. Like, it's not just the food that we go and buy at the store. If it was that simple, it would be like we wouldn't have to think about it that much. But it affects, like, there's so many things it affects of making sure that people have access to food, that they can afford the food, that the food is healthy, that we know where it came from, that, it's just like this constant web, I feel like, that just expands. And for me, it's just like every time I sit down to think about it, I'm like, oh, but what about this? Or what about this? Or what, it's like, it's so complicated. It is such a complex system. And I know I understand very little of it. And I've been trying to understand it probably for the past 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's also, I mean, to me, it's frustrating. To eat healthy is more expensive than to eat the junk processed food. And, you have people out there that did not learn how to cook, did not learn how to, and it's no fault of their own. We just don't teach that anymore at schools. It's not readily available that, how to cook and prepare good, healthy foods. But if you decide, okay, I want to eat healthy, and you're on a limited budget, you're not going to be able to afford that. It's just easier to go to the frozen food section and grab $1 burrito, and it fills that hunger need, but it does not fill the health need.
Mm-hmm. That's absolutely right. In our lifestyles, wow. I mean, when you start trying to look at preparing more foods from scratch at home, just fitting that into your day-to-day life and still being able to feed yourself and your family is so hard, because we've gotten so used to filling that time with all these other things, work and extracurriculars, and it's so hard to make that commitment to saying, okay, I do want to eat healthier. I want to eat more foods that are whole or have less ingredients in them. And then actually putting that into practice, it's like, oh my gosh, I could spend my whole day doing this. Crackers and chips, I've noticed in our family, like my kids love them, obviously. What kid doesn't? But that's one thing that I'm like, that would make a huge difference in our diets if I was able to replace that with a better alternative for them, like a homemade version, or that just I knew more what was in it. But when you sit down and try to do that, it's like, okay, so I'm going to make these sourdough discard crackers. So I have to, it's just such a whole process.
Right. Yeah. So, yeah, I wish I had all the answers, but I don't.
I know. I don't either. And it's just, I'm glad to have other people that think about these kinds of things to talk to. You said, you wonder like, oh, am I insane that I think about all these things? I don't think so. I think it's crossing more and more people's minds anymore, that just, what other options are out there besides what we have always gone to the store and bought.
Right. So anyways, I guess, to make change, it starts with me. Maybe it'll spread to my children. Maybe it'll spread to my grandchildren. Maybe it's a neighbor. Maybe it's a friend. But, and then, it circles back to all of us working together. Maybe who's growing what and how can we get to, a healthier, we don't go out to eat very often. But for instance, for me, it's easy. You spend so much money on a meal out to eat, and you look at the salad selection or the loaded salad selection, and that healthy menu is often more expensive than just getting a nice whole steak and baked potato and a side salad. And it's very hard for me to get in my mind, like, why should I pay $15 for this loaded salad when I could just get a steak salad and baked potato for maybe 10 or 12, And so I find myself even, thinking I'm going to go with the cheaper option versus the healthy option, when we do go out to eat too. So it's just, the healthier the food, it seems like the more expensive it is.
Yeah. Well, let's go back to your quote that really struck a chord with me at the conference. You mentioned that, we grow a lot of tomatoes in Kansas. And if you give a person or sell a person a tomato, but they don't know how to use it, did you really feed them? What goes into kind of your thought process behind that, or what led you to start thinking about that?
Just because, I see, I myself grew up in poverty, and I know that I don't remember a lot of what my family cooked or anything, but I know, it was maybe macaroni and cheese, I know it was a lot of processed stuff. And I was the pickiest eater. I'm greatly expanding my palate now that I'm in culinary. Like, I don't think I'm picky at all anymore. I'll try anything. But I just remember that when I met my husband, so, I mentioned he grew up in Southern Arkansas, and they would have a big garden, and they had a couple of cows for a while. I think they had like maybe 20 acres. So, it wasn't real big. But him and we ate completely different. I would eat meat, potatoes, corn, and bread. That was my diet, and I couldn't have any of my food touching. He would want fresh tomato, all these vegetables, and I thought, that is so disgusting. That's weird. Why do you want that? That just doesn't even taste right, But he still loves, fresh fruits and vegetables. But that's how he was raised. They ate what was grown because he also grew up poor. So they grew up poor, but they grew their own food that they ate. I grew up poor. We ate the food that we could get off of food stamps, commodities, or the cheapest food on the store. So my eating habits were considerably different than his. And, and then as I got older and started thinking about it and deciding I wanted to do more healthy stuff, it started evolving in my mind. Maybe my parents were given food, and maybe my mom didn't know how to prepare. I just started, having these conversations in my mind, I don't know what came in the commodity box. And I know we had those green food stamps at the time, but I don't remember them ever really buying fruits and vegetables and stuff. So I don't know if they didn't, maybe my mom didn't know how to prepare it, or it was just easier to eat the other type of food. So it was just one of those things, you talk about, was it the plan a row for a hungry? And it's okay, I don't know if they had anything like that as a kid. Maybe my parents did get fruits and vegetables. We just didn't eat them, or they didn't know what, I just started thinking about how I grew up, my husband grew up, our different eating habits. And I just started wondering if maybe people didn't know how to, use the food. I don't know. I just kind of one of those things I just thought about.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because I'm similar to you. I did not eat a lot of fresh foods growing up. And I don't know if it was lack of knowledge of how to prepare them, or because they knew that they were less filling, that's just not what the primary option was. But now I am a very picky eater, and I don't try a lot of those things. Even now that I'm I can grow them, but who is going to eat them if I do grow them? Because that's not in our diet. So yeah, just learning how to incorporate those things and find ways that my family will eat them, so we can kind of try to slowly shift our diet towards some of those things is interesting to think about. I think we've covered a lot of ground today. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you were really thinking about as we got ready for this, or that you really wanted to touch on today?
Not that I can think of. Like I said, we're at the beginning. So my conversation with you, if we did it in 2 years, it would probably be something totally different. We're just at that point where I've only been in my kitchen for a year. And so my husband's had the time just this year, 2023, to really get back to the farm, because I didn't get my employee till the latter part of 2022. And so he's home more. I'm at the kitchen more. So he's working on projects that need to be done here while I'm working on the kitchen stuff. So we're trying to just get that together. We're also, at the point where we're trying to find those like-minded individuals. How can we help each other? What can we do? And, we're just at the beginning. And so, there's a lot of things we want to accomplish and do. And I feel like sometimes I just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. And that's kind of what I do. Cause I admit it, I'm bored doing the same thing over and over again, but, sometimes you do have to do the same thing over and over again to accomplish something as well.
True. Well, I hope maybe in the next 2 years we can come back together again and hear all about how your business has grown again. I would love that. In the meantime, where can people find you, learn more about you and your products?
So we do have a website. It's www.brucesbullseyefarms.com, all one word. We have a Facebook page, so it's at Bruce's Bullseye Farms. People can send me messages through there. They can also call or text me, because I'd be more than happy to visit with anybody. And that's 316-841-1592 comes directly to me. And then we're at farmers market. So we do the 21st and Ridge Market in Wichita. We're there every Saturday, and we do get moved around quite a bit because we're not we're a member, but we don't have like a permanent stall space. And then my husband usually goes down to Derby on Saturdays. And then we also are in charge of the El Dorado Farmers Market, and that's twice a month throughout the summer. So, and then we've been doing the Mays Farmers Market. So I'm out in the community a lot. And then even at my commercial kitchen, people are like, "What's your hours?" I'm like, "Well, I don't really have regular hours, but my vehicle's there. Just stop on in or call me for an appointment," because I don't know. I just can't have regular retail hours till the holidays. I just have too many irons in the fire for that. So anyhow.
If somebody wanted to try one of your products for the first time, what should they try first?
Oh dear. Depends on what they're in the mood for. If they want a meal, then one of my homemade beer rocks. I do a 1/2 pound beer rock. The dough's totally from scratch. If they want something sweet, like one of our jams, here in about a month, I should have sand plum jelly, but I do have other flavors. That's always been the big one. And I don't know if they like something spicy. I do have some spicy jams, apple butters. So, it just varies day to day, it seems like.
Well, good. I think that gives people lots of really good options then. So I will include links to where people can find you in the show notes. And I just really appreciate you taking the time to chat today. And I hope some people local in your area discover you for the first time because of this.
All right. Well, thank you. I sure appreciate you having me. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Good. Thanks, Laurie.
Do you know someone building their ag legacy or with stories of yesteryear on the farm that need to be shared? Please let us know or help them apply to be a guest on the show at farmingonpurpose.com/guest. If you've enjoyed spending time with us today, please take a moment to review the show on Apple Podcasts or give us a share on social media. You can follow the host of Farming on Purpose, Lexi, at Farming on Purpose on all social media. And let us know what topics you want to hear more about.